So hey y'all, I'm back with another video. So tonight's video is yet again another Chioma Chats video podcast edition. So by the title, we're going to be talking about the show Baddies South. Now the only reason why I'm doing this video is because this was super requested. I was definitely going to scrap this, but let's talk about Baddies South. Baddies South is a series on Zeus Network that is pretty much a spin-off of the original show The Bad Girls Club that aired on the Oxygen Network. Baddies is executive produced by Natalie Nunn, who was one of the stars or just one of the most memorable cast members of the original Bad Girls Club show. Baddies South is the second season of the Zeus Network's Baddies franchise. They started off with Baddies ATL, and that was so horrible that I was gonna do a review, but I didn't because the show literally had me discombobulated in the head. Like, it was so trash, y'all. So this has been a long overdue video, being that Baddies South premiered and ended months ago, but I see the Baddies franchise is expanding once again, and they just debuted Baddies West. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I don't know where to start because this show was so mentally tiring, but at the same time, I will say that it was a huge step up from the first season, like by far. Basically, the girls have a tour bus and they are going to different cities in the South to, I guess, quote unquote, get the bag. And they constantly said that they were here to get the bag. And I was just confused because what bag? Okay, brown paper bag, ShopRite plastic bag, Miami Beach tote bag, what bag? They never talked on the bag. However, I do like the concept of them going from city to city because the whole aspect of going on tour gave the show a little bit more of a storyline than them just being in one house all the time. I can tell that they definitely upped the budget for the show. They spent a lot of money to house the girls, transport them from city to city, and they definitely stepped up from the first season. Literally, this was a shit show. In my Rolly voice, this was a shit show. So like I said, this show is old news, but it was highly requested for me to cover. I had to go back and skim through some of the episodes to gather my thoughts. I'm just gonna be as thorough but quick as possible with this review. I've broken this video down into 3 main talking points, so without further ado, let's get right into this video. So point number 1 is the cast. I think the cast was good for this season. They definitely brought some characters that made the show addicting and made you tune into the show every week. So starting off with Ann Moore. So Ann was the certified clout chaser. She was the one who has a very scandalous OnlyFans account. I never thought to go look up her content because quite frankly, I think she gave us enough on the show. To me, Ann's character was placed in to be a shit starter, flat out. The first episode where they were riding in the van to go to the house and she confronted Bree about being an escort. I really don't understand why she would open her mouth about something if she was an ex, especially if her herself, she sells sex. I mean, she's on OnlyFans deep throating the most weird items, but you're worried about what somebody else's pretty pink pulsing, piping hot punishing, put it on a pedestal pussy is doing. That's kind of weird. Anne came off very for TV to me. At the reunion, when she was now trying to say that she's now going by her birth name of Bianca, I wasn't buying it. I think she was really trying to clout chase and find a way to stand out, so she picked a fight with a lot of people and very well so got that ass whooped. I do think Anne as an individual is kind of likable, but she went too hard to portray herself as something that she wasn't on TV. I think Anne was probably the fakest person on the show, and at first I really disliked her because you can tell she was just clout chasing, but at least she was very honest about what she was doing. I definitely loved her accountability. So towards the end, it seemed like she had some type of spiritual revelation about what she was portraying and how much it had affected her self-esteem. Like, you could literally see that she was very uncomfortable with herself at some points, especially at the reunion when she announced herself as Bianca and that being her real name. It was like she grew on me and I was like happy for her, but I was also realizing that she is an example of a lot of the things I speak on. She definitely let money and attention drive her morality and her identity. And I think that was the imbalance that she had during the season. I think her revelation was in between filming the show and being on the reunion. Currently, I think she is still kind of clout chasing, so I'm not sure about Anne. I did like her song though, but that's it on Anne. So my next person is Jayla Mina. Jayla was actually on Bad Girls Club season 10 in ATL. Correct me if I'm wrong. She was on the season where it was her, the Claremont twins, and all of their belongings being destroyed and vandalized. I liked Jayla on Bad Girls Club. She was one of my favorite bad girls. I feel like on her season of Bad Girls Club, she represented the bougie black girl that will still whoop your tail. And I like how Jayla kind of has been out of the spotlight ever since her season. She's been more focused on business and promoting her brand, so I was kind of confused when she was on the show again. season. But I can tell that Jayla was always down for a good time, and she tries to be the leader of the group as it's kind of natural for her. I think for the Baddies South show, Jayla kind of talked her way into being likable in my regard because she's very well spoken and very smart. Like, her introduction was really distinct compared to everyone else because it was about her business and just showing her in a likable light. However, Jayla definitely, to me, was a follower and a wee sucker of Chrisean Rock. The way how she just strategically made Chrisean Rock be like a little sister to her was crazy because she was definitely keying with Natalie and Persuasion. I think Jayla is a beautiful person who is very true to herself and confident, but I feel like her character was definitely outdated. She really didn't have to come back and do the show. She eventually made herself the arch nemesis to Natalie, which to me was very contrived, especially being that they're cool now and they were cool sometime after that. Jayla still had a likable character to her during the show. I loved her clapbacks, and she was always down to get down with anybody. Moving on to Slim. So say what you want, but I actually kind of liked Slim. She was like 50-50 to me. The one thing I liked about Slim is that she was so small, but she always talked big shit. People try to say that she was scared of Chrisean, but I don't think it was that. I think she didn't want to give her that much credit to even have beef with her because you could tell Chrisean just kept picking at Slim. Like, Chrisean tried to bully her, but Slim was definitely barking back. Although Chrisean definitely had them hands, Slim still had that energy, as little as she is. I think her placement on the season was interesting for her to beef with Chrisean, but I also liked her friendship with Rolly. I like that they contrast each other, and I think their friendship was real because they would argue and then get back cool. But I still feel like with Slim's character, she seemed to be over the show during most of the filming. Next up, we have Bree. So Bree is a former bad girl. She was on season 17 of Bad Girls Club, which was the last season. When she came into season 17, she definitely kind of shook the house up by being neutral, being able to defend herself, and just wanting to have a good time. But that Bree that I saw in season 17 of Bad Girls Club was not the Bree that I saw on Baddies South, and it was pissing me off the entire time. During Bree's BGC season, I liked her. I liked that she didn't back down, but I feel like between then and now, something must have happened to Bree because she was just so meek, so reserved, and really so controlled the entire season. It's almost like the other girls had to tell her to bark at Anne and get into it with her. And every single time Bree opened her mouth, especially in the confessionals, it was like she was speaking Instagram captions language. Like, everything that came out of her mouth was an Instagram caption. It was like, we about to get lit, we gonna turn up, because that's what a bad girl does, and we all bad girls. Like, it was just so weird to me. Every single time she talked, it was like she was reading a script from Instagram. And then some of the stuff she was wearing was just so confusing to me. But in regards to Bree's placement on this season, they definitely could have done without her there, and this season would have definitely went the same. I watched the auditions recently, and I feel like she was trying to redeem her image at the auditions by trying to be over opinionated, fighting somebody, and acting like her old self. I'm not sure what she was going through during the filming of Baddies South, or if she's just always been for the cameras. I think she's a cool chick, but overall definitely didn't do much for me this season. Next up, we have Persuasion. I'm really indifferent about Persuasion because I feel like at some point I did kind of like her, but on the other point I didn't because she kept trying to overcompensate the entire time. I think she's a beautiful girl with her wig and with her short hair. I like how she was showing it. I like that she's outspoken even with her petite size. And even when she was on Bad Girls Club, you can tell she handled her own and was definitely a fan favorite. I think on Baddies South, she tried to play the role of the big dog and the older girls, and then she paid the price. Although I do think it was barbaric for Chrisean to fight her into the sink, I also think that Persuasion talked herself into that ass whooping. A lot of what Persuasion did was just attention seeking, and if you remember the scene where she was getting ready to dance at the club when they got to Houston, it was like she was talking to herself. Like, y'all, go back and watch that episode. The whole time she was getting prepared, she was talking to herself or just gassing herself up, and the other dancers was just looking like they could care less about her and the cameras. It was just bizarre. So that's why I feel like for her, she did this for a resurge of attention, even though she's definitely an OG bad girl. How she was perceived on Baddies South definitely wasn't the best. At the reunion though, I do like how she came. She was dressed nice and she didn't allow Chrisean to just keep barking. I would have actually liked to see her at the Baddies West auditions, but I see that she's kind of over the whole bad girls thing now. Next up is Chrisean. I think Chrisean Rock's placement on the show was actually for good reason, and by good reason I mean good for TV, or the cameras like she likes to say. Her introduction was basically plastering her as the outcast. Her being too cool for school, rough around the edges, sweet and sour personality who is not going to hesitate to call you out and also not going to hesitate to fight you. I think Chrisean Rock could have done a lot more with her platform if she wouldn't have been as aggressive, but I think she definitely did the original Bad Girls Club recipe of being the first to make the other girls fear her or want to be a part of her team. I do think it was petty for the older three ladies, which was Natalie, Jayla, and Persuasion to make fun of her or crack jokes about her cleanliness. But I feel like if what they were saying was true, everybody has the right to comment on keeping the house tidy. I think Chrisean internalizes every critique as an attack on her, and that's why she only knows how to attack others, because her past traumas get triggered by people saying negative things towards her. I don't like how they filmed her run-in with the law, because yes, it was dramatic, but it was definitely used for a storyline when she literally came back like the very next episode. All of that Titanic music they were playing was kind of unnecessary. Chrisean Rock is really just a nutcase. She can't really control her explosive reactions, and I think as much as it's great for TV, it's going to get old the more that she does reality TV. Nobody's going to want to keep working with that. During the reunion, she was belligerent. She didn't let anybody talk. She didn't allow the attention to divert from her, and it was really heartbreaking to see how she was only shut up or listen to anybody only if Blueface was telling her something. That girl is under control of a lot of things, and I think shows like Baddies South just exploit her character. Nonetheless, she's grown and she decided to be a part of Baddies West, and I think it's just going to be the same old tune that we've already seen. Next up is Scotty. I think Scotty was a great addition to the show because Scotty was not like the other girls and wanting to be petty about fighting and always arguing. I think Scotty may have been the only person there that was actually there for this alleged bag that they were getting to, but she was definitely sucking Natalie's titties. You can tell that she was Natalie's pet, and I think Scotty is one of the only girls in the show that could be super successful without the show, being that she's young, she looks good, and you can tell that she has a sweet personality. I like that she admitted that she isn't a fighter, and with that, she didn't really back down to anybody, even though she was getting tapped a few times. But I liked her mantra. I like the whole Scotty with the body. I think that's a cute little brand name. I like Scotty as an individual. Now, her and Natalie together, it was just annoying because not only is Natalie trash, but Scotty really can't stand alone. Watching the audition, she was the only one giving out a lot of the tickets because I can tell she's a nice girl, so I'm gonna wait and see how she reveals herself during Baddies West. Next up is Rolly. Now, when it comes to Rolly, no Rolly slander will be tolerated. Rolly was the only real one on this entire show. She called things out for what it was. She was quick to handle arguments, and she was very confident in her size. I liked Rolly's character because as unconventional as she may have looked for TV compared to the other girls, she was the most confident girl. Wig or no wig, Rolly was the most self-assured person there. The reason why I say Rolly was the realest was because she didn't back down to anybody, and she was very smart when it came to having conversations about all of the conflicts. The only things I didn't like about Rolly is that if you know that Slim and Chrisean are at odds, why do you end up being cool with Chrisean? I also didn't like the fact that she fought Natalie, and Rolly had a lot to say about Natalie, and she even said at the reunion that she wouldn't be back and that she's above all of this, but is now back on Baddies West. However, I think Rolly was so much of a standout that it makes sense that she's on this new season. Rolly made the season worth watching to me because not only was she funny and she was herself, but she seemed to be the most self-assured, and it definitely came off likable to me. Now, last but not least, Natalie Nunn. Natalie Nunn was like nails on a chalkboard to me the entire season. From her Marlboro Red cigarette smoking voice all the way to her instigation and even her playing everyone against each other. I've already said that I think Natalie is a narcissist, and I think she is too much in the mix of the show for her to be a respected executive producer. But I get that she wants and likes the attention. I will give Natalie credit for doing a good job in making the show 1 million times better than the first season. You can tell that the budgeting, the idea, the planning, and the selection of what the show was going to be focused on was way more thorough and thought out. I think Natalie is great for reality TV. It just comes off very annoying. I felt like during the season, she orchestrated a lot of the beefs by trying to play both sides, and sometimes it was unintentional, but she did it nonetheless. She likes to talk the talk, but at the same time try to dictate what everybody else was doing. I found it weird that she would always act like she was the hype man, and people just kind of went cringe when it came to her. Like, she's definitely very cringy. If I had anything positive to say about Natalie during the season, is that she was focused on facilitating getting to the bag. I just don't know how effective she was executing it. It was clear as day that she kept telling Sydney Star where everybody was, because there's no way somebody is going from city to city and driving hours upon hours to be at the same exact club in the same exact city at the same exact time as the baddies were. I feel like the Sydney Star thing was played out, and she definitely used Sydney Star to make the show look more attractive than it really is. At the reunion, I think Natalie completely embarrassed herself. She deserved to get popped in the eye like she did, and if she just would have been on chill, a lot of that would not have happened. Natalie just looks like she tries too hard, and that's just my problem with her. I feel like she has the right idea for this whole reality TV show, and I guess I can give her credit for having multiple spinoffs with Zeus stemming from the entire Baddies idea. So moving on to point number 2 is the conflicts. So since the season aired and concluded a while ago, I'm going to be very brief about discussing some of the conflicts that were prevalent during the season, just to give my overall thoughts on some of the main rifts that some of the cast members had with one another. So let's start with Chrisean versus Persuasion. I think Persuasion kind of got what she was asking for. Chrisean fighting her and basically beating her into the sink was kind of warranted, being that Persuasion was being messy and trying to kind of degrade her and then acting oblivious when it was brought to her attention. However, I think Chrisean Rock just needs a muzzle to a certain degree. She gets annoying because all she does is keep talking. I understand she likes to fight and she hits hard and all of that, but I thought it was corny that she didn't let Persuasion square up with her at first. Then when they went back at it again, Chrisean obviously won, and I think Persuasion is one of those smaller girls that has a big bark, and her big bark got her a big bite. During the altercation, Persuasion was taunting Chrisean by making comments about her messing with Blueface, which is Chrisean's boyfriend. I thought that was very corny to do, especially at 32 years old. I wish the ladies would have just been able to talk that out, because to me, it wasn't even real conflict. Chrisean's ego was hurt because she doesn't like to be checked. Persuasion was being funny and unfortunately ended up getting into it with somebody who lacks couth and definitely lacks self-control. The next conflict was Bree versus Ann. I thought it was very messy for Ann to call out Bree. I mean, I get they're all supposed to be bad, but I don't think outing her for selling her cooter cat was necessary. Ann was a clout chaser and a shit starter, and I think she intentionally tried to make herself the antagonist because she just wanted that attention. But in the process, she kind of diminished Bree's whole entire reputation for the season. Bree was never the same after she got called out. Obviously, their fight was corny because Bree had to get gassed up and buffed up to do it, and Ann can't fight. She's definitely all bark, no bite. Not even a nibble. Moving on to Slim versus Chrisean. I feel like Chrisean was just picking on Slim because Slim was the smallest. I don't think Chrisean and Slim really had any reason to go at it. Apparently, their whole beef started because Chrisean threw a bottle at Slim during an unfilmed part of the show. So I was happy that Slim actually stepped up for herself, because a lot of people are gonna pick on the small girl. I understand Chrisean's argument of Slim hopping in to jump in for Rolly when they were all fighting, but I think everybody in the house chose sides and was definitely down to ride for other people. Chrisean reminds me of all of the bullies that I had in high school. If y'all didn't know, I went to high school near Baltimore. It was still in Pennsylvania though, which is where I'm from, and almost all of the black kids were from Baltimore. Chrisean reminds me of all of my bullies. That's probably why I don't like her. But they sound alike, they kind of all are annoyingly aggressive, and they just don't stop. They pick on people who don't want issues with them to boost their ego. I'm glad Slim still wanted to fight, even though she was definitely tussling with Chrisean more than once, but I do think their beef was more or less bullying on Chrisean's behalf. Next up is Natalie versus Rolly. Now, this was one conflict that I felt I was waiting for, because I really like Rolly and I really don't like Natalie, as y'all know. And I'm glad that Rolly really whooped her, because Natalie just talks too much, stirred too much stuff up, and just wasn't real. I think Rolly was starting to see past the smoke and mirrors of being on the show. You can tell as the show progressed that Rolly was just kind of over it and got tired of the immaturity and the constant back and forth. And although she did add to it at some point, it definitely did get redundant. And I think their beef was more or less Rolly calling out Natalie for all of the things that she did to start this shit show. Y'all should watch this season again and take a shot every single time Rolly says this is a shit show. I definitely feel like that was the motto of the entire season. Nonetheless, they're back cool, so I guess it is what it is, but I definitely think their conflict was necessary. Moving on to Rolly versus Scotty. I think nobody saw this coming. It was kind of a mini one because it was out of the blue. Apparently something happened at the airport between Rolly and Scotty, and I personally think some people were just trying to provoke Scotty, Rolly included, because to me, Scotty does not come off like anybody who starts problems on her own. She's the type of person that only gets into something because she hangs out with messy people, for example, Natalie Nunn. And I think whatever they had going on was a misunderstanding that got taken too far, because Rolly didn't like Natalie once the show was over. The reunion was crazy in how Scotty got slapped up and snatched up a few times, but apparently they have let the beef go from what I saw on the auditions episodes, so I guess Scotty and Rolly are cool now. So the last conflict is the house divided. So the biggest conflict was more towards the middle to the end of the season, when it was a house divided. So it was Natalie, Rolly, Slim, Bree, and Persuasion versus Jayla, Chrisean, Ann, and Scotty. This all started because there was an off-camera argument in which a water bottle was thrown at Slim via Chrisean. So the next day, once the cameras were present and the girls were about to leave the house, it kind of just blew up. Slim squared up with Chrisean, they started fighting, and then Jayla wanted to fight Rolly because Jayla, like I said, is a wee-wee sucker of Chrisean. So they started fighting, and then in the midst of Rolly and Jayla fighting, here comes Chrisean trying to jump Rolly, and then Slim them basically just had it out for Krishan for the rest of the scene. After the fight, they are supposed to leave. Somehow there's a disconnect between Natalie and Jayla, and then everybody's kind of split. Side note, I don't understand how Scotty ended up on the side without Natalie, but I think it goes to show how much Scotty is just kind of cool with everybody. I just think this was supposed to be a huge divide of the show. It's like how in the original Bad Girls Club show, they always had half of the house split against the other half. I think this time around, they actually had a reason to be at odds since everybody was kind of fighting, but I think it was kind of short-lived because they realized a lot of it was just built up anger. One thing I would like to say about the reunion is that Trina gave a very good message to all of the ladies. Go back and watch it. Basically, Trina said that none of them were friends and none of them wanted to take accountability for the things that they said and did. And on my channel, I always talk about accountability because I feel like accountability solves a lot of problems. It forces you to deal with your bad behavior, your trauma, your negative tendencies, and how you project yourself onto other people. And I feel like all in all, a lot of the conflicts that the girls had was because of a lack of accountability and their egos overshadowing what was actually happening. I like that Trina ended off with that message, although it probably fell on deaf ears. But to see the conflicts throughout the entire season, I just hope that everyone can look back and take some accountability for everything each and every one of them said and did. So my third point is just wrapping everything together. So all in all, I just want to give like my overall thought process on the season. Like I said, I think it was definitely an improvement from the first season. And I was happy that they did resurge it in the right way because as a Bad Girls Club fan, I wanted to see some type of reboot, especially the way how Bad Girls Club ended. It definitely deserved to get picked up and showcased somewhere else. The pros of season 2 was it actually had sequence. So they actually kind of had a storyline for everybody, and then going from city to city was refreshing because it wasn't as redundant as just being in one house. I like the tour aspect of it. At first, I did feel a way about them including random new girls in a spin-off show, but I think the new girls give the show the edge that the original show didn't have. I think season 1, which was Baddies ATL, proved that having all OG bad girls really doesn't even work anymore. And it was more because everyone has gotten some type of clout off of their season and feels like they need certain credits and certain boss status to be a part of the project, when in reality, they should feel above doing a show like this altogether. I think incorporating old girls and new girls makes the show what it is, and I think Natalie and the rest of Zeus Network found their recipe for success with the Baddies franchise. It gives some of the new girls a chance as well as brings back some of the fan favorites from the original show. Now, my issue with season 2 is that I think it definitely focused more on the conflicts versus navigating through the conflicts. It eventually became kind of fake that they were fighting and then making up and then fighting again. I do like that it gave some focus to everybody's life outside of Baddies if they're doing something like music or whatever, but it was kind of overshadowed because I think all of these women disregard a lot of their traumas and their weaknesses. I think the show could have been so much better if the club events were promoted correctly, because I do think a lot of people would actually come out to the events that the cast hosted. But in a lot of scenes, the club either looked dead or they looked like they were capping about how much fun they were having. Now, when they went to the pool party, that seemed like a great situation. I wish I was there. And you could tell that they had better planning for that. But I think sometimes watching the show, some of the scenes didn't look legitimate because I have yet to figure out what bag were they getting. Can somebody please answer what was the bag? I don't know. Season 2 of Baddies wasn't bad. You know, pas mal. J'ai dit que comme ci, comme ça. Baddies South was definitely an improvement. After watching the first episode of Baddies West that is now out, I see that they are getting better, which is something I can give credit to. I still think the show and Zeus Network overall is full of toxicity and degenerate behavior, but it is entertaining and makes for great reality TV. So that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. I just wanted to give a quick review of Baddies South. I'm definitely tuned in for Baddies West. So what do you think? What do you know? Let me know. If you haven't already, go stream my song Ballin'. It is out on all platforms and the link and video is down below. And last but not least, don't forget to follow me on all of my social media networks, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, let's go, let's go. Everybody take note. Yeah, it's Queen Chioma reppin' Africa, West Coast. Hear my song, wind your waist, everybody get low. Got all my dogs with me like they out of Petco. Let's go, let's go. He see this brown skin ting, he can never let go. Stop gassing all these joints cause they out of petrol. Ask God for all these blessings in their manifesto. Extroverted, introvert, and honestly, that's really me. Went to school, I'm not a fool, it's never ever silly me. Stomp a bitch out with my Timbs, yeah, it's the Philly me. Not saying I'm the GOAT, but I'm trying to be a Billy me. Oh, Molly Chioma, reppin' green, white, green. Emo state, chop life with me and my team. I'm the creme de la cream, gotta pay the top price. Big hype, none light, one mic.